Sometimes YouTube can be a real nuisance. Now, this video has a bunch of new content placed throughout it, but it also contains some content that a few of you may have briefly seen yesterday before I deleted the video. Twice. I'll spare you the details on what went wrong, but if you really want to know, I will explain at the end of this video. Meanwhile, I've taken the opportunity to discuss a few additional new upcoming Microsoft Flight Simulator features that I missed the first time around in the initial video. I've also added some information from the recent dev update at the end of this video, which includes details for items to be fixed in the upcoming Sim Update 6, so make sure to stay around for that. Anyway, let's get to it. It's a little quiet with Microsoft Flight Simulator front lately. However, there's a ton of new content planned in the near horizon and into 2022. So in this video, I want to take a look at the future of Microsoft Flight Simulator and where it's heading next. Microsoft and Asobo have already begun development on one of the next big features for the sim, gliders. Now, gliders are fundamentally a different way to fly, so this is something that the dev team are 100% going to want to get right. Whilst regular planes are most definitely affected by updraft and winds, they are arguably not as reliant upon them as gliders, at least depending upon how you view these things. Therefore, it's likely that these elements will need to be 100% simulated, and accurately so, before the arrival of gliders. At any rate, gliders are coming, and they are set to arrive in 2022. Now, it's not known when the DirectX 12 update will be coming to PC version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Originally, it was planned to release alongside the Xbox version of the Sim Update. That would have been Sim Update 5. Clearly, those plans changed somewhere along the line, and Microsoft have avoided discussing it. At any rate, DirectX 12 will hopefully bring a number of improvements to the sim. So far, Microsoft have only mentioned a single one of those features, which would be ray tracing. On another graphical note, it's been mentioned multiple times that the PC will at some point receive some new graphical options. This will allow the sim to go beyond the current Ultra settings on PC. There's no release date for any of this, but personally I'd be willing to bet that this arrives at some point in 2021. Moving on to world updates, there are 6 new ones planned for 2022. We know that 2 of these will cover Brazil and South Korea. Beyond that, Microsoft have also confirmed in their Q&A live streams that the USA is set to get another world update at some point. Meanwhile, the developer feedback snapshots show more European world updates extended throughout 2022 and into 2023. We also know that London is set to get a remake at some point. In terms of other areas of the world, Microsoft have previously expressed interest in developing world updates for the Southern Hemisphere. The Brazil update would certainly be a part of this, but hopefully this will extend to other countries as well. Helicopters. These are big ticket items for the future of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, Microsoft have apparently taken on a partner to help out assist development with these, as it's very much a large-scale development project. Currently, helicopters are slated for a release some point in 2022. Meanwhile, the upcoming Volocopter, which should be releasing fairly soon now, has been designed to form a part of the groundwork for the eventual arrival of helicopters. Now, replay is a feature that I've personally wanted from day one with the sim. It would be a massive help when producing video content. However, beyond that, I know that replay is something that a lot of people want for a lot of different reasons. It's also something that a lot of flight sims tend to have. Asobo have previously said that when they implement replay, they don't want it to be a basic feature. They want it to have other elements that will make it very useful as well. For example, having the ability to pick up a flight and take control of it at any point during the replay. That said, how the feature eventually turns out is still a mystery. What we do know, however, is that the replay feature is more or less complete in terms of development, but still needs some further UI work to create a better interface for the user. It seems very likely then that this feature could make a release at some point in 2021. Many flight sims feature external cameras that are fixed to environmental objects such as the ATC tower, a point on the runway, or simply a random point on the ground or in the air. It's then possible to use these cameras to get flyby views of your plane. Now, on initial inspection, it seems that this should be a part of Action Replay feature, and it may well be. But that said, there's also a strong argument for using this during live flights. As such, it's worth noting that the current schedule shows a classic Flyby Views as coming in some point in 2021. Although Microsoft say work on this hasn't started yet, it's marked as planned instead. It's quite possibly a relatively quick feature to implement. In which case, if that's so, I for one am looking forward to a new way of capturing footage and new camera angles later this year. Seasons are another thing that a lot of people seem to have been requesting since the original release. Now, Microsoft have confirmed that work on this feature has begun and that seasons are set for a 2022 release. That said, there's still a little confusion of exactly what seasons means in the context of the sim. There's a possibility that it could simply mean different types of active weather, but to be honest, the sim already has that, more or less. Yes, live weather still has a lot of problems, but weather variety does exist. So, seasons then likely means a full seasonal activity across the entire planet. This would mean the correct application of the seasons in both the northern and southern hemispheres as well. On a side note, not technically related to this is the Aurora Borealis. This is another thing that Asobo want to add into the sim, however they want to do it fully simulated. This of course means adding in code and calculations for Earth's magnetic fields, a complex task then, something that should be interesting to see when it eventually arrives. The Reno Air Racing expansion is set to arrive later this year, and it's going to be the largest expansion so far released for the sim. Now, I don't want to focus too much on that in this particular video, as it's been covered quite a bit recently. In brief though, the update will introduce competitive multiplayer air racing based upon the Reno Air Races, potentially a real solid addition to the sim then. That said, how many of you are actually looking forward to this particular expansion? Is it something that interests you? Do let me know in the comments section below. The Xbox Game Pass has generally been accepted by much of the gaming community as an amazing value for money. A monthly subscription that grants access to hundreds of titles, including all of Microsoft's first-party releases on day one. Additionally, it covers the use of both Xbox and PC. More specifically though, the Ultimate Pass also covers cloud gaming access, meaning you can stream games to a variety of devices including mobile. Microsoft Flight Simulator is soon set to make an appearance on the cloud gaming service. This means that the sim will finally be available on the Xbox One. More recently, the studio has also hinted that cloud gaming could make the sim accessible on mobile platforms. How well this all works out, only time will tell, but it certainly is a curiously interesting thought. Again, let me know on this particular one in the comments section below. How do you think it would actually work on the cloud gaming service? The Top Gun update was originally set to release in November, however with the delay of the movie, the free sim update has been accordingly pushed back to May of 2022. The update will bring official support for jet fighters into the sim and will also add aircraft carriers. Now there's very little specifics beyond that, however, understandably so, as Microsoft seem very intent on avoiding spoilers for the movie. Now, I've got to admit that this one's very surprising to me. It's surprising that multiple monitor support did not exist in the Microsoft Flight Simulator from day one. And it's also something that is still not present. However, it is in development. But that said, release date for this is extremely vague, being set somewhere between 2021 and 2022. Either way, when it eventually does turn up, it's going to be a very useful feature for a lot of people. The addition of Powerlines, cable cars and masts seems like a relatively minor addition. However, it's fair to say that such additions add a lot of character to the world. More than that, they add further elements to assist with VFR navigation. This is also a feature that Microsoft will undoubtedly want to be accurate to real-world environments. This then is another feature set for 2022. Finally, the subject of trains. This might seem like a relatively small feature, after all road traffic already exists in the sim. It seems a little bit on the odd side then, that on the surface at least, the trains seem to be more of a complex thing to add, or at the very least, are not yet present. Microsoft, however, have stated that trains will be a thing eventually, and have put a release window for this of 2023. Now, I'm curious whether or not Microsoft feel they can add a simming element to trains beyond just their visual appearance, which might potentially explain the fact they're taking so long. If you have any ideas on this particular element, do let me know in the comments section. What could trains potentially add to the sim? That then brings us to an end of this video. Quite a lot of things to be added to Microsoft Flight Simulator over the next couple of years. Looking forward to seeing where it all goes. So do let me know in the comments section below what features you want to see in 2022 and generally in the future of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, this week's dev update was relatively light, but did touch on a handful of subjects that people will be happy to hear about. Today's hotfix should help with a number of these issues and fix some problems introduced with the recent world update. As of writing though, the patch notes for this aren't yet available, but I will add them into the video description as soon as they are live. One thing we do know, however, is that wind gusts have been reactivated, although Microsoft say additional UI work is still needed, and as yet, there's no date for when that will happen. Black screen on long flights, also something that unfortunately hasn't yet been fixed. Meanwhile though, Microsoft have confirmed that the annoying dot that is located at the centre of the screen every time you move the camera is being fixed with Sim Update 6. Additionally, the UI menu, the triangle element at the top of the screen that is more or less permanently there nowadays, will also be fixed with the same update. Whilst both of these seem relatively minor, they are quite annoying nonetheless, and I know quite a few people have found them frustrating. Sim Update 6 is currently scheduled for a late October release. So, yesterday's video, what happened with it? Well, nothing too complicated, but something pretty frustrating even still. For a while now, I've been uploading videos in 4K. These obviously require a high bitrate to maintain quality, and YouTube recommend a bitrate of between 53 and 68 Mbps. Naturally, this leads to some rather large file sizes. At any rate, for a few months now, YouTube have been having trouble with processing these videos once they are uploaded. This means that the 4K option often isn't available for quite some time after the video goes live. However, what's worse than this is that 1080p and even 720p are often unavailable for viewers as well, and this leaves many viewers stuck with 480p or less. This is what happened with yesterday's video, although it only seemed to affect a certain percentage of users. Now, this whole problem also affected many other videos, including the recent Star Citizen video that I released on Wednesday, which as of today, even though rendered and uploaded in 4K, is still stuck at 720p and won't even process to 1080p, let alone 4K. And yes, there is a joke in there somewhere about even the Star Citizen videos taking a long time to develop. Not wanting that to happen with the Flight Simulator video, I decided to remove it and re-upload it at a simple 1080p. This in theory gives YouTube less intensive time of things, and they can usually process it much quicker, more or less instantly in fact. Now, the new version of the video that I uploaded and all processed just fine. However, after about 20 minutes, YouTube decided to stop showing the video to the audience, meaning that the views simply stopped, going basically to absolutely zero over time. So I decided to pull the video again and use this as an opportunity to make a few amendments. So here we are, this is the new video. The bottom line here then is that for the while at least, I will be returning to publishing videos at 1080p rather than 4K. I know that some people will be disappointed by this, but until YouTube can guarantee not to keep showing videos to people at 480p, I don't really see many other options. In either event, I do hope you continue to enjoy the content. And yet, really, thank you for continuing to watch it all. That then brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.